I didn't know that I needed an Hercule Poirot mustache origin story, but apparently I did. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2022 mystery thriller, Death on the Nile. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Death on the Nile stars Kenneth Branagh, Gal Gadot, and Armie and was directed by Kenneth Branagh. Set 3 years after the events of Murder on the Orient Express, it tells the story of famed detective Hercule Poirot, played by Kenneth Branagh, as he investigates a murder aboard a riverboat in Egypt. I love a good mystery movie. There's just something so exciting about a movie that gives you all the clues, but still keeps you guessing. So I gotta admit that I'm pleased that the murder mystery whodunit movie has been making a bit of a comeback these last few years. Agatha Christie is, of course, the queen of these types of stories, and is repeatedly either the inspiration for or the direct source of many of these movies. 2017 saw an example of the latter with Kenneth Branagh's adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express. While it certainly had its flaws, that's a film that I like more than the average person seems to. I thought it was a sleek and fun murder mystery with a very unique style, and I was looking forward to another Branagh-helmed Poirot movie. And after 5 years and half a dozen different release dates, we finally got one. Death on the Nile sees Branagh return, both to the director's chair and the mustache, as Poirot is once again roped into solving a murder aboard a form of transportation. Train is swapped for riverboat here, and we get an entirely new pool of murder suspects, with one unexpected character holdover. As with its predecessor, and its 1978 adaptation, this is an ensemble film. Having an exceptionally large cast is a classic whodunit element, but as is often the case, is a difficult thing to manage. As probably expected, the screen time of our suspects is very unequally divided, and few of them are ever fleshed out beyond a few defining characteristics. Time is limited in a movie, so it's understandable. However, it does work in opposition to the film, both in terms of the mystery, as well as its necessary attempts to engage the audience. With so many characters to deal with, the film has to take some time to introduce them, and so, along with Poirot, we observe a lot. Along with Poirot, we're also fed a lot of bite-sized expository information about each of the characters. As we watch, we're presented with tedious romantic melodrama. The first act of this film is slow and bizarrely protracted. We do get some information here that's important to the eventual resolution of the story, but not nearly enough to warrant the glacial pacing. That first act is certainly not a good start, but thankfully, once the central murder occurs and Poirot's investigation gets underway, things do improve a bit. It's an interesting scenario, albeit still fairly melodramatic, and for the most part, the story keeps you guessing, assuming of course you haven't read the book or seen the 78 version. I do think that the hints and pieces of information that we as the audience are fed could have been handled a little bit better. Some of it was clumsy or a little too obvious, so I do think a lot of people will figure this one out before the big reveal. Maybe not the how, but probably the who. That said, between the plethora of possible motives and all of the red herrings, the mystery here is pretty solid. As with the 2017 Murder on the Orient Express, Poirot himself is one of the standout aspects of this film. I actually really like Kenneth Branagh's version of Poirot. He's quirky and eccentric, but he knows it, and he owns it. We don't get quite as many of his entertaining OCD moments as we did in the previous film, but we do get a few, and one involving a foot actually made me chuckle in the theater. His dialogue is once again quite entertaining, especially the moments of quick banter, though those too have been reduced here. In fact, Poirot's presence in this film feels a little strange. He almost feels like part of the group this time, rather than an outside investigator. So there's this reluctance from him, and perhaps slightly less objectivity that just feels a little off. As was also the case in Murder on the Orient Express, the tone here in Death on the Nile is frustratingly inconsistent. But whereas Murder on the Orient Express couldn't find the right balance between comedy and melodrama, this one finds itself stuck between melodrama and romance. Obviously, not all murder mysteries have to be fun adventures, but Murder on the Orient Express had a very playful tone to it that was unfortunately mostly lost here. Death on the Nile has this shroud of almost melancholy over it. It has its moments, but there's definitely a somber attitude carried throughout the film that honestly makes the movie feel like a bit of a downer. Death on the Nile is kind of a weird one. It's not horrible, but it's not great. I'm somebody who went into this movie excited and came out kind of apathetic. I feel like I don't have strong feelings about this one in either direction, really. It has its positive aspects, but it also has its negative ones, like the random over-reliance on CG backgrounds. But the two sides really just cancel out to leave you with a movie. Not a good one, not a bad one, just one that exists. I know that Murder on the Orient Express wasn't a big hit, and I fear that yet another coolly received, underperforming film may mark the end of the Branagh Poirot series, but I'd honestly still be up for another one. They've got a lot of Poirot stories to choose from. They've just got to pick the right one. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro is once again Hercule Poirot. I'll admit that I don't think the character was quite as entertaining or interesting here as he was in Murder on the Orient Express, but he was still the standout among the huge cast of characters. Branagh's version of this character is so bizarre, but it works, as long as he's got good characters or mysteries to play against. A few of his bantery lines and retorts were among the dialogue highlights here, and that mustache origin story was certainly unexpected. On the con side, the biggest issue is the first act. I think I tend to be more patient and tolerant when it comes to slow, information-heavy starts to films, but this was pushing it even for me. This was a long setup, and that wouldn't be a huge deal if it spent that time focusing on important information or delivering it in an entertaining way, but it doesn't. It's slow, it's kind of dull, and it just takes twice as long as it should have to give us the character information we needed and kick off the mystery. The second con is the inconsistent tone. This is a holdover from the cons of Murder on the Orient Express, and while both films are inconsistent, the way in which they're inconsistent is different. Death on the Nile has its fun moments, but it loses much of the playfulness of its predecessor. So there's this constant push and pull between kind of cheesy melodrama and surprisingly serious actual drama. In spite of the jokes and humorous Poirot quirks, it's a very somber movie, which feels out of step with the ensemble mystery at its core. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Death on the Nile or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Death on the Nile 3 out of 5 paws, though it's borderline 2.5 paws on this first watch. Once the whodunit side of things gets going, this becomes a somewhat entertaining mystery, but the inconsistent tone and absolutely glacial first act make it a bit of a chore to get to that point. I would recommend Death on the Nile to people who liked Murder on the Orient Express and are looking for another Poirot film. I personally didn't like this one as much as Murder on the Orient Express, but I do think the two films will have obvious overlapping fan bases. Whodunit fans, people looking for a murder mystery, and readers of Agatha Christie will also be more inclined to like this one, but I think individual preference will vary quite a bit. If you liked Death on the Nile, I would recommend the 2017 version of Murder on the Orient Express. Although an adaptation of an entirely different novel, this film serves as the predecessor to Death on the Nile, introducing us to Branagh's unique version of Poirot, as well as his unique aesthetic for a Poirot film. If you liked this particular Poirot story, I'd suggest that you check out the 1978 adaptation of Death on the Nile. There are obviously a lot of similarities, but the style is quite different, and there are even a few plot changes. And if you're looking for a really good mystery film with a fun and memorable investigator, you've got to watch The Thin Man. The mystery plot is very good on its own, but what really makes the movie, and the whole series for that matter, is the duo of Nick and Nora Charles. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Death on the Nile? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie set in Egypt? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies. The way life should be.